Dylan, Henry, Pop, Belky, welcome to the podcast.
Danny's watching.
I like it. I like that a lot.
Huh. Okay, that's quite the way to kick it off. You probably know him as Pop from the vlogs, but this costume it just made an appearance right before we hit record. So
this shirt is tight too. I do not like wearing shirts. So Danny, you're lucky. Yeah, you got me clothed for this episode. It's good.
Thank God. So I think we'd start things off with, how did you guys meet?
You want to tell the story?
I'll tell my version of the story. So when you get into college, right? I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna make this that long-winded. When you get into college, you go to like an admit weekend. And I was just moseying around, no plans, no one there. I was sad. I had a girlfriend from high school back home. I was like, do I really want to go to college? And I walk over to the flag football game and Dylan's got sweat coming down his face. He's like playing really hard with a lot of people that don't play football. And I was like, that guy might be all right. And then I think you picked me up.
Yeah. So I picked Henry up. So this is what happened. We got into like a kind of nerdy school. I always identified as an athlete. So I was coming in and I'm like, all right, where's like the cool kid out of all these nerdy kids? Because no one could play flag football. They were throwing like with their left arm. And then I just see Henry. I'm like, that kid looks mildly athletic. So I'm like, I'm gonna go up and talk to him. First person I talked to at Brown or at school. And
last person.
First and last, literally. And we just kind of hit it off. I had to poach him because he was trying to go to Stanford, but luckily his girlfriend was in Rhode Island too. So us two. I don't think I actually played any weight in that decision.
But there's this brilliant thing about Dylan where I think I met all of my friends in school through Dylan, but then.
And I'm super antisocial.
Right. So like Dylan's the glue for all of our friends, all these awesome people, but then you kind of back away into the corner. Yeah. You let us play out. You let the emotions mix. So, I guess we've known each other 6 years, which is kind of crazy. We just said we should go out for like an anniversary dinner together.
But, it surprised me that you said Dylan's antisocial because he started Bold Introvert.
Danny is on his game.
Oh, Danny, I hope you don't have B-roll. But no, that channel, that was me. So basically Bold Introvert, that was the first instance of Bold Introvert when I went up to say hi to Henry. Because like, I have to get in the mood when I'm going to go and socialize with people. Otherwise, I'll just default to like reading a book or something. But Bold Introvert was like, all right, I want to meet more people because Henry's running out of friends. So I got to find him some. So that's when I was going out just on a tear, trying to just meet people like crazy. And that's kind of continued doing that for a while.
Well, I think what you did really well was take you're like super self-aware about your own introversion and antisocialness. You're like, I want to fix that. And so that turned into like, how can I learn how to be more comfortable meeting new people?
Danny, are you extroverted?
I'm 50-50. Introvert and extrovert. I love reading books. I get energy from that. And I get energy from this conversation as well.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
What about you guys?
I think that's where I'm at. I was introverted for a long time. I don't know. We're like, we don't like creating these labels or putting these labels on us because then we just default to them.
Yep.
But I don't know. It's the difference between us is like, I'm like, let's shoot 6 podcasts in a day. Let's film 4 vlogs in a day.
Danny, I'm really worried because I'm going to fall asleep right after this podcast.
And we've got dinner at my parents. So.
Oh, am I going to that?
Yeah. It's Memorial Day. Thanks for being here, Danny. But no, so we'll record one podcast and Dylan's like, that was a lot of conversation. I'm going to have to nap that one off. And I think that's why we work really well together, but also our difference.
That's so fascinating because Dylan, you have a passion for podcasting and a passion for doing it. So it's surprising to hear that you also want to fall asleep right after.
Yeah. This is, for the like 6 months of shooting, we're almost at 100 episodes for Smart Nonsense, our podcast. But we haven't been shooting as much recently because crazy shit's been happening. But that was like the one event in my day for like 6 months, which is like podcast with Henry at 1 p.m. I shoot that, success for the day. That was it. And then I just kind of like mosey around and my friends would make fun of me because I just like listen to audiobooks in my bed in the meantime.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of crazy shit's been happening. Take us through that.
Oh, man. So how did you find us, Danny? Where does our story begin? Because we should probably start there.
our story
Or even
begins
before, it probably started pretty
MFM, All In.
Yeah, so there were these clips that were going on, and from my first million, Sam Pars posts them, and I'm like, oh my God, these are the best clips I've ever seen. And I want to now go watch My First Million. I'm not a My First Million watcher, but I listened to it from time to time, and I'm like, I need to check this podcast out. What is going on with those clips? Who is behind that? I need to talk to these people. And I go digging and digging. I end up emailing Dylan about, I don't know, a month ago, something like that. I'm like, how do you guys do these clips? Like, that is incredible. And so through that process, I'm like, I got introduced to the whole ecosystem of what you guys are about. And I'm like, I like these dudes. Now
Okay,
take it away.
First, you can tell the story. Danny, we need to cut what you just said so that we can send it to Sam and Sean and let them know that that's why you watch their podcast. Maybe we'll get a bonus.
Basically, their monthly listeners have doubled since we came on. And we're like, all right, I don't know how much you attribute to like the clips being out there, but I'd like to say a decent amount to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so basically kind of the story of how we got to making clips, because Henry's a decent editor. I kind of suck. I edited those Bold Introvert videos, but that was
it's true.
The extent of my
we both come from this video editing background.
Right. So we were playing around with videos a while back in college, etc. After school, Henry took a year off, started making some YouTube videos, kind of learned editing side. I was working for a dating company because I really like talking to people. If you hate parties, talking to girls, like how else do you do it? So I was like, I'm just going to talk to them in the street. So I did that for like a year. And then once this whole COVID quarantine thing happened, I was like, you know what, let's go crazy and just quit my job with the dating company, because who's going out right now? Start this podcast with Henry. And we're super lazy. So we're like, let's hire some editors to do it for us, like the video side.
Sponsored by the US government.
Sponsored. Yeah, we were both on unemployment. And I think Henry, I don't know if I don't know. Well, we'll keep that out. I don't know what you're on anymore. But
hold on. I haven't been paid by Smart Nonsense Media. I am still unemployed.
We'll get to the reason why. But Henry, okay, whatever.
No. It's a really good investment. It's a really good investment for the US government because you were on it. We'll go back in the story a bit, but then you came off it and you're making an absurd amount of money. So now you pay it all back.
Well, yeah. So
That's
basically we hired a dope video team for our podcast. And then the dating coach, essentially, that I worked for, we reapproached him and we're like, hey, we can do this for whatever, call it 10 grand a month. And then boom, we were like, oh, wait, there's actually traction for like good video editing. And so we had now the funds to sort of hire more editors, and just out of nowhere, I guess kind of, we were surprised when we came to one of our editors. We're like, hey, this podcast, My First Million, they want to do a video. And I think we're good at editing. We didn't know how good we were. We were just like, hey, can you just make like a 2-minute clip? And we're going to send it to them and see what they think. And so he just goes overnight. We're like sleeping. We wake up in the morning.
AJ, by the way.
AJ, he's a stud. And he just spits out this sick edit of this Silk Road, this Sam talking about Silk Road story.
Yes.
He met the
So really
founder.
quick, our hack there was finding MFM's most popular clip on YouTube and turning that into this animated thing. We're like, if it already worked as it's their most popular asset on YouTube, then let's make this easy and just start there.
Right. So there was a whole.
Is this before or after February 26th?
That was right around. I don't know the exact date.
The question I'm asking, is this before or after flying out to San Francisco?
That was before.
Oh, Danny, you want the long-winded response.
Well, there's a lot. Okay, so we hear, because we've been like #1 fans of My First Million. Great podcast. Listen to it. If you don't, well, you do, but anyone else. We loved it. We kept hearing about them like, hey, our video team or our team right now is just dropping the ball. They can't do video. They're ass. And we're like, that's the only thing we can do. So like, let's go to them, create some little crazy blitz pitch that we can do it for you. We can set up your studio. We can edit your podcast. We're the whole smorgasbord. I don't know what you want to call it. The machine we're going to give to you.
The chimichanga
machine. So Henry kind of, I don't know. Maybe there's too much detail, but we weren't going to be able to, like, they weren't going to see us if we went to one of their big tweets with like 1 million replies. Henry stumbles across this little tweet from this guy, Mark Henderson. And God bless his soul. But he messaged something. It had like 2 likes, and they were both from like Sam and Sean. So no one else in the world saw it except those 2. And we're like, all right.
And me.
and Henry somehow. So we're like, this is our chance. Their attention is here. Let's just slip in, kind of steal his thunder, and just outpitch him.
Yeah. And we had been kicking around ideas for a while, and we're like, we're creating our podcast. We're trying to reach out to people we like, but it's not working. So we gotta dial it up. We gotta crank this up a notch. And I left our apartment. I was like, I gotta film a video right now. And that was the kind of like physical pitch to Sam. You all need a video setup. I'll show you a video setup. Look at this place we built, and look at what I've done in the last 6 months. By the way, here's all the gear you should get, because no one's telling you exactly what you should get. On top of that, we forged some airplane tickets using Danny knows, maybe. So I'm like, wait a minute. I can act like a computer programmer. I don't know how to program, but someone showed me how to change little, fonts and scripts on web pages. So we're tripling down. We'll make this video, but we're also going to convince them that we're flying to their houses tomorrow.
Right. This whole permissionless shit kind of borderline stalking, which Sam was legitimately concerned, and he says it in the podcast. We still have clips of that, but yeah. So we inspect it, kind of change the dates, like we're actually flying out the next day, because we're just crazy. And kind of the last,
we could have that's the thing.
We would have,
right? If they we would yes. have, right?
We kind of ended up doing that.
We were fortunate to have taken off 6 months of work, build this thing ourselves, and literally be able to get on a plane the next day. That's kind of where we were at.
Right. So we had built this whole system. Sorry, Danny, for rambling forever. But for 6, 7, 8 months, we were essentially building a system where it's hands off for us to just create dope edits. And so now we're able to, like, once the moment is there, we seize it like no other, because we have the whole team infrastructure set up. And in 24 hours, we hit them with Henry's edit, my edit, and they're instantly just mind blown. And then the next thing we get is a DM from Sean. And he's like, I don't know what you guys are doing, but it's sick. What do you want?
It's exactly what Dan said.
How do we get it?
It's like, I don't know what you guys are up to, but it's sick, and I want you on the pod.
So that kind of beyond there, I don't know. There's a bunch of details. Like, we talk to him, have awesome conversations. We end up just like flying out pretty much the next flight, build his studio, totally unqualified for that, but did a decent job, and then just been editing all their clips, like an insane amount of clips for them. Plus recently some other clients too. So it's been a nuts journey starting from my first million.
And Dylan, when you saw that Henry had changed up the email and changed up the flight, you were worried that it wasn't actually a flight.
Yeah.
It's
just, you think so I'm dumb.
I do. But I mean, I thought he dropped the ball, but that's why I don't know. We work really well together for some reason.
Why?
Henry just
I know why. I know why. Because I do those things really fast and come very close. No, I drop the ball often. Dylan's really good at picking up that ball. Should we tell him about JCal? Jason, this is another.
This is kind of funny.
But I think that's why we work really well together. It's like I execute at all costs, like obviously to a fault. Stuff I put out's not great. Dylan's more on the side of perfectionism. And so we've got this like really nice balance of Dylan diving in, taking something up to near perfection. And then I convince him like, this has to go. We got to move on, kind of thing.
Okay. So
yeah,
my first million isn't the only podcast you've worked with, right?
No. So one thing for anyone, I don't know what's useful to people if they're like working with, I don't know what people do these days. I haven't worked a real job in my life except for like a busboy, but like our whole approach to working with people is not optimizing for money. Cause we've done a couple of those projects where it's like, we get paid a lot, but it's like, it's grueling. We don't like it. They don't like it. They don't have the distribution we'd want. Like, we want podcasts where my first million, we're getting tens, hundreds of thousands of views on some of the clips. So that's worth it to us. And
we said the other day, like, what would we keep doing clips for if we weren't getting paid to do them.
Right.
That's how we get to All In, but sorry, I cut you off.
Yeah, whatever. That's kind of the theme of everything. Yeah, so like who would we edit clips for if we weren't getting paid? And top of mind for us, like next on the list beyond My First Million was All In. Mm-hmm. So God, we still have to shoot our own pod.
And we because this was just last week, Danny, but we were like, to a lot of extents, we crushed it with MFM, right? Like we got their attention, we do the thing, they hired us. We're like, now we gotta up the ante, because I mean, maybe the All In guys watch MFM. Twitter's kind of been watching us do this MFM thing. So we sit down, we lock ourselves in the studio, which I can't mention who, but it's been renamed the bunker. And we're like, okay, we're going to have whiteboard war, and we're going to figure out a way to get All In's attention in a similar manner, but again, cranked up a notch.
We got the whiteboard up right now that, we're cooking up something crazy.
Yeah, we're cooking up another thing today. But so yeah, our plan was they've got 4 besties on All In. So that's 4 opportunities for us to make 4 pieces of content to get their attention 4 times.
That's 4 people, right? For those of
4 people.
You who are unfamiliar.
Yeah, sorry. If you don't know the besties, go listen to the All In pod. It's just another great one. And the first person we wanted to get the attention of was Jason Calacanis, because it's more or less his podcast. He's probably the most active on Twitter, and he's the goofiest. He's like the most smart nonsensible type, convincible person. Yeah. So again, I run to the studio. We write up the script. I shoot this thing super fast. My editor takes it over, edits it super fast. I'm like, boom, looks great, get it out. And I'm alone here. And I'm like, yo, Dylan, can you drop a like? Like, this thing's getting no attention. Actually, Danny might
dude,
like
it was
right
so
away.
stupid. You were like, Henry's like, dude, you got to hop in here, like, give it some love. And I go in, and the first thing I see is he spells Jason Calacanis wrong, both in the caption and the video. And I'm like, dude, this is the first video we're putting out. And he's like, yeah, dude, but like, I'm like, take it down. He's like, no, dude, it has so much traction. I look, there are 7 likes, including my own.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude,
that's more traction than I've ever gotten that quickly. But I'm like, hey, slow down. Let's do a risk benefit analysis. Our only motto here, and with Smart Nonsense and our editors and with our clients, is do no harm. Does this thing we're putting out really quickly do no harm? If not, ship it.
So I was like, Belky, this is the one thing that does harm. Like you spelling like Danny Miranda, if I spelled your name wrong, you'd be like, Dylan's a fucking chump. Like who does this? So luckily we took it down before, hopefully you saw. I don't think he ever saw it. And then we did some quick little edits, because Henry even like
we shot some stuff.
What you I was writing spray painted something. Stuff, like, it was all over the place. So we had to edit the whole video in like 10 minutes, but put it back out. He saw it. His first comment was like, let me hire you guys. I don't know what the fuck you do, who you are, but I want it. And then we just continue to blitz them over the next week or so.
But this is good. That in terms of how we work, I personally, actually, I wasn't going to take it down. I put up a comment like, sorry, I'm just stupid. I know it's Calacanis with an A. It's really funny because I checked it like 8 times and I was like, yep, that's it. That's right. That's Calacanis right there. No, and I still did it wrong.
It was training for Chamath Palihapatia.
Yeah,
you know he was going to get that wrong.
Right. Yeah. So that's kind of how Dylan comes in and fixes my stupidity. And you left it at, you were like, well, it's good practice for Chamath. So see you in a couple of days.
Like one thing, kind of the point before you jumped in and cut me off, like thankfully Danny's nice and listens, but no, you should cut us off more. But with like editing, whether or not you're getting paid, this is, well, one, with My First Million, like we are getting paid for that, then like that, it makes sense. One, we're getting paid for it, which is sick. And then 2, they get so much distribution that we're having people like right now, we're editing essentially a Netflix special for a comedian just because he saw us, DM'd us. And we have literally dozens and dozens of DMs from these insane people. Like right now, this sort of, but we're working on the terminology. But then I kind of said this, I don't know what you thought.
Yeah, this will be the release of our newest line of marketing.
Squatter marketing. Do you know what squatter law is?
It's when you are in a piece of real estate and the real estate expires and you get to then live in that place after the expiration of that real estate.
Yeah, literally, like if you're just in a place long enough, I don't know, like 10 years or so, they're just like, all right, it's just yours now.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what we're doing with All In. and we're like, all right, we're just gonna edit their shit as if they paid us to edit. And now whenever people ask, like, dude, we saw you guys edit All In, and we're like, yeah, we do. They have no idea. We're not getting paid for any of this. And so a lot of these people, like, I don't know if we should say names, but like
who?
Like, you know,
Probably not then. I don't
want to say stuff yet, but like people even beyond All In level are literally reaching out to us and like, oh, who are you working with? And we're like, yeah, we work with All In, you know, we're editing some stuff.
No, but you got to word it really well. You got to be like, we're starting to edit clips for the All In podcast.
Yeah. No,
because you take me to the court. That's true.
I just want to underscore the genius of what you guys did with My First Million, at least that I saw. You took every single person on that podcast and you created a video just for them, basically a DM in video form that the world could see. And no one else has done something like this that I've seen. And it was so brilliant that, you know, you mentioned it before, but I wanted to underscore, where did that idea come from?
I think, well, first of all, I appreciate that. That's awfully nice. And I don't think there's any genius there. I think that the key is we just did it. You know,
right.
I think it was like, that's the only skill we have. So it's like, this is our only, we can't write very well.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. We read this book. We read this book called Building a Story Brand. And now that informs like everything we do. So I'll drink a bunch of coffee, sit down with my notes, and I'm like, okay, who's the hero of this video? What's the problem? I'm the guide. Let me give them a plan, call them to action. And this is what success for Jason Calacanis looks like. And like, that's the script for every single movie, every single book, every fairy tale, like everything. So basically Dylan and I just sit down. We're like, build a story brand. And then we just follow that to a T. Yeah, I guess Jason was like, he retweeted one of them, was like, this public DM thing is like super crazy. And we were like, oh, that's what that is. We don't know. Like, and we're like, oh, it is a public DM. Yeah.
Dude, what another like takeaway for people, like right now we're suffering a major, or at least I am, imposter syndrome. And it's like, even getting into a school as someone who never identified as nerdy, like a good school, that I felt a little bit, but this is like next level, because I don't know like how much we're allowed to like say what's going on, but like,
yeah, I don't care.
Okay, yeah, whatever.
Like Naval?
No, okay. Others.
Said it.
Another thing, whatever. We're in a like a couple of days ago, David Sachs is like, all right, guys, my portfolio. We have like 1 million videos. All my portfolio companies like, can you do these videos for them? The first one we want to work on is this app called Callin. And so we get on a phone with him and his I forget her
operating
title.
Partner, maybe
Jessica something. And we're in the room and they're like, hey, we want to do a launch video. Like just kind of walk us through your process. I'm like, well, David, what would your process look like? And he's like, well, I think we should do this, and this. I'm like, I concur. Like that's exactly what I do. Maybe a couple tweaks here, but that's our general process with these videos. Meanwhile, we've never done a launch video before, so we have no idea what we're doing.
That's not hyperbole either. That's like exactly what happened.
And you could tell I was on the spot, and like Jessica, the woman, was like looking at me like, who are these clowns? What are they doing here?
But then she's like, that sounds great.
But also how much of that is in your own head, right? And how much of that is like because you believe that someone else thinks you're an imposter, you believe, oh, I shouldn't be in this moment. But the truth is you guys put out some really, really good videos and professional level and better clips than I've ever seen anyone do it. So if there's anyone who's supposed to be in that moment, it's you. And it's hard because you didn't do it the old way of brick by brick and starting at interning for someone and spending 10 years in the design industry like Jack Butcher did. But it happened like that for you guys. So you're like, whoa, should I be here? Do I deserve it? The truth is, yes, you do, because your work is A+ quality.
That's super true.
Yeah.
And I keep telling Dylan that. I'm like, because I do more of the like day-to-day, like I'm in the content pipeline and Dylan's doing more like visionary stuff.
Keep joking, like I don't know what I do anymore.
Whatever. But Dylan doesn't even see a lot of the content we're putting out. I'm like, dude, go watch what we did a month ago. There was no sound design. Like it was the clip felt naked, like it sucked. Watch the stuff we're doing now. It's unbelievable. And like you saying, like you saying, Danny. A lot of this stuff's, yeah, it's in your head. And we just have to remember that these people reached out to us. Now, at this point, like, we're not nagging and like, give us a shot, give us a shot, give us a shot. They reached out to us because the work speaks for itself. And that's the kind of imposter syndrome mentality that it's hard to kick, but you have to kick.
Even like, okay, so when we first hit my first million up, I was essentially like self-employed. I didn't have a company. Henry wasn't even like
I wasn't
involved
working for you
at all. And now Sam's like, hey, we want to send like all of HubSpot's marketing budget for all of this, like, towards you guys. Like, you guys got like a company, right? And I'm like, yeah, totally, dude. We got a company for sure, 100%. And I'll get you those details tomorrow. So then I'm like on the phone. We have like outsourced assistants. So I have my assistant. I'm like, find everyone in Chicago that's an accountant, lawyer, whatever. We got to make a company by tomorrow, just so we can like
send an invoice.
Yeah, basically invoice them. And otherwise, I mean, they kind of knew we were a joke after, but like we were the biggest joke. And it's just funny because HubSpot's a $20 billion company, and they're like, "What the fuck? What is going on? Why are
Smart,
these 23, 24-year-old people doing it?" 23.
Yeah.
So just a lot of that shit all over the place.
But look, you can do two things with that, right? And there are two types of people. To get back to your point that like this is genius, you can sit down, have an idea. Like I had a startup before this. That's kind of what we were wasting time doing. Go through all the formalities, start a company, plot out your plan of like. Do all the formal stuff that business school says you have to do. Or you can just go out tomorrow and release something on YouTube and do it. And like, people need to understand, at the time I had 450 subscribers. I still don't have a lot of subscribers. Someone told me the other day, it's not that you get 1,000 or 1,000,000 or 10 million views on something. It's just that you got the right view. So we're like, can we just put a ton of stuff out into the universe and then stand out and get these guys' attention? And just execute. That's really all it is.
So it sounds like go for
it. Danny, it's dangerous.
Danny,
when we haven't shot a podcast for like 2 weeks, and normally we're shooting like at least once a week for the last year. So you got a lot of pent up energy coming your way. But one thing I want to underscore is like, again, kind of part of the imposter syndrome is we have almost no say at all in any of these clips. Like you see them and you're like, wow, Dylan and Henry, they're making dope clips. I have no idea what's going on, dude. We're just like, hey, can you make a clip for like this 5-minute segment, cut it down a little bit? I'm like, yeah. And they spit out gold. I'm like, that's it. And again, they is like our team. Now it's pretty big ass, like legit ass company. But a lot of editors, specifically in the Philippines, we have a major team there simply because you can get the best editor in that, like basically the best editor that I've ever worked with in the US at whatever, a fraction of the price. So you can afford to build a proper team around.
And you get the kind of time zone benefit, especially for doing daily stuff. Myself, it's like, we can upload something here in the evening. It's now 6 a.m. in the Philippines.
Wow.
We go to bed, they edit all day. I wake up, my shit's on YouTube, and our client's stuff is out the door. So we're like totally cranking away kind of 24/7. We're like, maybe we should hire down in Latin America and actually be 24/7, 9 to 9.
So Henry, it seems like you're struggling with the imposter syndrome a little less. And do you think that's because of your background in filmmaking? And is that anything to do with it?
I think, and I haven't told you this, but I think I figured it out. We were on a trip in Mexico and we got talking a lot about like being a lot younger and how we were raised. And I think it sounded to me like Dylan had a lot of teachers who broke him down and like told him, you're not.
I had a dream about this the other day.
Well, I think that's
I had a dream where I found the flashlight. Okay. So I don't know why this is important to any, but,
it gets into how we developed, or in my case, maybe grew out of imposter syndrome.
Right. Okay. We'll see if hopefully I don't cry, but just out of nowhere, basically, Henry was asking a question or something about like teachers not being nice. I don't know how it came up, but I was like, I moved schools. My parents got divorced in 4th grade, moved to a totally new school, didn't know anybody, cried every single day at school. Literally had to go to the therapist because I'd be in class and out of nowhere, I bawl for no reason. And they're like, oh, Dylan's crying again. Like send him down to the therapist. Awful shit. And then there was this one project where it's like, we had to build a flashlight for whatever, just build a flashlight.
Class or whatever.
And part of the reason I cried all the time, because I came in and I didn't know anything. Like I went to a charter school and they mixed like second graders and fourth graders. So I was basically learning like second grade shit.
So literally Dylan's in a classroom years behind, right? Your peers.
Yeah.
You're like actually to that extent an imposter.
Right. And this
in
was actual. Yeah, that was real. This is therapy. That's nice. But coming into the classroom, like everything's written on the board in cursive. I couldn't read cursive because my school never taught me that. So I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I didn't know what a paragraph was. And they're like, hey, the homework assignment is write 2 paragraphs on this over the weekend. I just bawled. I was like, didn't know what was going on. So there's this flashlight project and basically had to create a flashlight. And I wasn't really friends with the people in the group, didn't know how to work with them. So I just went home and built my own like dope ass flashlight. It was incredible. I was so proud of it. Come into school the next day and show it to the teacher. And he's just like, why did you do this?
Wow.
Like you're supposed to build it with the other people. Why would you go? Like he literally didn't acknowledge all the effort I put into it. And I just like went and threw it in my locker and bawling again. And so when I told Henry this story, I just out of nowhere just started crying. And so I guess that's where you're like, this is
like
imposter.
You for years were like an actual physical imposter. And I think I had a childhood where everyone told me I was awesome, you know, so.
Well, you raise a real point in that if a child doesn't feel he or she is valuable, he's going to, or she's going to believe that their entire life. And that's a crazy assumption. And I was actually just listening to the 4 Agreements audiobook, and they're talking about a child who gets told that he shouldn't sing when he's a young kid, and how if his mom tells him, you know, you have a terrible voice, that he's going to keep that agreement in his head for a long, long time. And that is exactly what you dealt with the flashlight. And you believe forever that is your agreement that you've made with yourself. And breaking that agreement is difficult. Henry?
But also a lot of the times in this case, you don't even know it. This was like locked away so deep in Dylan's subconscious. We're sitting at a pool in Mexico. And I asked like something about, because I had a lot of similar issues with anxiety in elementary school. And we're talking about that. And then like, boom, it all comes back. And it's like, wow, that's why I've done this for 12 years.
Yeah.
And that's crazy.
Talk to me. Henry, talk to me about Miss Turzo and Miss Gallant.
Danny, you're paying attention. Holy cow. Kind of similar.
You guys want to be friends? I don't even know that much about
it. I know. We're trying to start a dinner club to make more friends. But anyway, Miss Turzo and Miss Gallant, kind of similar to this, but it was more me just being in my own head. You know, because my parents said I was special, and I had the fortune, a lot of teachers said I was special, and I was in the footprints shadow of my brother.
Footprint shadows
of my brother, who was like this really awesome student. Everyone knew him in town. All the teachers knew him. So I like got to grow into that. And so that was great. I do know what happened. Basically in like 4th grade, I got asthma. So I had gone from this like super happy kid. I remember I was at floor hockey. That's right. We played floor hockey, and there's like dust in the gym, and I had this like crazy asthmatic reaction. And from that point, I turned into this like hypochondriac, like the world's out to kill me. Like I can just be playing hockey and keel over and die. And that was like this really fragile idea. And then, it was the same thing. It was like going to school every day, crying every day, just like stuck in my own head. You get that anxious, you have no appetite. And then I had no energy to do anything. I never saw friends. And so there's a lot of terribleness. But in 6th grade, I had these 2 awesome teachers, Miss Teresa and Miss Gallant, that basically just allowed me to be distracted, allowed me to get out of my head, told me I was like awesome. I was the class clown, like whatever it was. And that's when I learned that, to get out of your head, or to get out of bed, or to get out of your hypochondria, whatever it is, just distract yourself. And so that's kind of something I still employ to this day.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's why I don't stop moving.
You can distract yourself, or you could go inward, which is sometimes more difficult. And I know, Dylan, you were talking about doing Naval's 60-day meditation challenge. I don't know if you stuck with that, but I did it, and I ended up confronting a lot of the issues that were in the back of my head, like you were talking about that flashlight incident. And from becoming aware of them, I suddenly had all this more energy. I was free. I was able to express myself better. I didn't know that all those situations were in the back of my head. So I'm wondering if you did that. And if so, if you got to that level or that point.
Danny, I think I made it 6 days, just enough to record a podcast like I was doing it. Actually, Yes Theory, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They got a cool YouTube, but they just put out 1,000 days meditation, and they had like a Headspace 60. Actually, I don't know when this goes live, but it might still be up.
Leave that me. Dylan's question to you, Danny, was meditation the extent of your kind of diving into yourself, or have you sought out therapy?
I went to therapy before, but meditation unlocked a level that was like going to therapy every single day. And it gave me such an advantage because, like, we're talking right now, I've already been to therapy today. And you know that feeling you get after you go to therapy is like weight off your shoulders. Oh, I needed to talk about that. I get that every morning by just doing 60 minutes of meditation.
That's 60 minutes is a long ass time. See, my problem is like I have my routine in the morning, and that takes probably 60 minutes, if not more. So I'm like, if I add another hour of meditation, then it's like 1 p.m. before I even think about starting my day. And that's nap time. I can't cut into
1 p.m.'s nap time. I think, go ahead, Danny.
No, it makes sense. And it's the type of thing that once you start doing it, once you start seeing the benefits of it, you're like, oh, this makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I guess my issue is 60 minutes is just such a long chunk of time to start out. Like,
well, you should start with 5 and then 10, if like really doing nothing.
Yeah, did you just die? You just did 60-60.
No, well, I had done about 6 months of 20 minutes. I did 3 months of 20 minutes. Then I went from 20 in the morning, 20 in the evening. And then I looked at 60 minutes and I was like, that is so long. Like I can't do this. And I actually have my log for every day. So you could see it on my website is like every single day. And you could see the clear-headedness increasing as the days go on, which is really cool. And that's why I love doing things in public, because it's like that accountability and that log of like, my children will be able to see the first 60 days that I meditated. How cool is that? So
what do you think about for 60 minutes? Nothing.
There are a lot of things I think about, things that are going on. I'm like, oh, I have this podcast with these 2 crazy kids later today. And you go through questions you're going to ask them. And then you're like, why am I thinking? Oh, like, and all of a sudden the voice in your head gets boring. And you're like, all right, just shut up. And you get to that place of nothingness and you feel that sense of peace. And then you're able to take that peace to this conversation. Because if I hadn't ran through the stuff in my head, I'd be talking to you. I'd be like, oh, what's for dinner tonight? Oh, what am I going to do for my workout? Like, doesn't matter. I'm here right now. I'm present. I'm focused. And how did I get to that point? I was peaceful and present this morning.
My problem, well, I probably didn't do it long enough, but 60 minutes, I was like, my mind's just going. And I'm like, I need to write some of this stuff down. I was having brilliant ideas. And I'm like,
you will.
I'm getting out of the meditation if I write this down, but what if I forget it? And then I started tweaking. And I don't know.
we did, Danny, at our old apartment, we had this bathroom that got pitch black. And we would try and simulate a sensory deprivation in the bath. Now, the problem there was if you didn't get the water to be exactly 97 degrees Fahrenheit, if it was like a little bit hotter, you'd sit in it, the door would be locked. So I'd be in there. I'm going to do a 45-minute meditation in the pitch dark black. Pitch dark. Sorry, there's a train going by. I've got ADHD. Focus.
He's got ADHD. He's like a dog. He is a train.
He's your train. So sitting in the pitch black, and if the water's too hot, those thoughts turn into, holy crap, I'm going to die. I'm going to slide down into the water. I'm going to drown. The door's locked. No one's going to come get me. And then sometimes I had to get out. It's scary. But it does kind of unlock this just like deep thinking. And yeah, when you get to that point that's just nothingness, that's really special.
That was a funny story.
Yeah.
That was okay. That's good.
And you were scared that Dylan wasn't going to knock down the door because it was.
I forgot about him.
See?
Yeah. That's the thing. Meditation, something you have to do daily and you have to do consistently. But what was hitchhiking in Argentina like, Don?
New friend.
Yeah. You should have come with. Hey, next trip. Wait, Danny, where are you?
New York.
Well,
Just
we missed
missed
you.
him.
We should have said hi. But that's one I realized it pays to be a hot girl because they were infinitely easier to get a ride. Man, it took us hours and hours and hours we're two dudes just to get someone to pull over and be like, where are you going? And like, oh, we're not going there. And then it's like, all right, another couple hours. So no, that whole trip was just madness. In terms of just going out and just doing wild shit, like I think I don't know, we just get stir crazy. Part of the problem is like all our friends have real jobs, so they can't like do crazy things with us anymore. That's why we're like, oh, we want to go to Mexico a couple of weeks ago, and we just went, and we're like, oh, let's try and learn how to surf, or let's scuba dive in caves. Like that sounds cool. So just like that sort of excitement. Tim Ferriss was big on like, don't try and figure out what makes you happy, just do what makes you excited. We like to live by that in general. That's why we get along very well, and now have nothing. Like we can do whatever we want, and the team's kind of self-operating. So it's all sick. Patagonia is like fucking unreal. Like in terms of just going there, and like that whole trip started with rollerblading 72 miles through I can't even think the Andes, through the Andes. And I don't know how much of the story you heard, but like literally this grandmother, when we stayed, because we basically had to camp in like abandoned campgrounds, and like I literally just brought like 2 t-shirts. So I was like, it was fucking midnight and freezing in Patagonia. I don't know what I was thinking. And with a dude I just met like a week before, because he was the only one crazy enough to do it with me. But at one of these places we stayed at, grandma saw us, and she's like, saw me rollerblading with a massive backpack because I had all our gear in it. And she's like, where are you going? In Spanish. I'm like, oh, we're going like the Siete Lagos, like we're doing the whole trip. She's like, never once in my years have I seen anyone do that before. She's like 90 years old. So I'm like, oh, that's kind of, I guess that's dope. Like it was frightening because you can't really brake. It's mostly like you're just skiing the whole time. But if you fall, you get run over by a car, scratch on pavement. So I'm a big fan of adrenaline. I love it. So the more of that in our lives, I think that's what fuels me for the most part, other than nice conversations.
Well, I mean, what was that experience like though? Actually hitchhiking, like in a foreign country?
Well, one, my Spanish is decent, so it wasn't amazing. Oh, plus, hey, not anymore. But the person I was with also spoke Spanish, so it kind of worked out well there. But I don't know, we're just never scared of things. Like people are like, I've talked to thousands of strangers just through the course of life, and like they're all awesome. Like never once, unless you're in like a super sketchy area, you're like, I've never been worried. Granted, we're dudes, and you know, I don't know, people probably wouldn't pick a fight with you, but like I think more people just got to get over the whole stranger danger thing, because strangers are awesome. We actually read a book. We had a book club. It's called 40 Tales of the Afterlives or something like that. Have you heard of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Great book.
Beautiful.
Highly recommend it.
Yeah, it was super fruitful for a little book club conversation. But we're talking, in one of the potential stories of like, it's basically like religion for the non-religious. One of them was you die, and then you're in this world, and you look around, you're like, oh, I recognize that person. Oh, I've seen that person before. Oh, that person too. But then you realize the world is only populated by people you've met before. So now you're like, there are 1,000 people, whatever the number is, but there's no one beyond that. You're like, wow, when the world doesn't have strangers, it sucks. Like the world is so beautiful when you have each individual painting their own picture, and it all comes together in this beautiful mosaic. And now that's gone. So that's why I'm like, fuck stranger danger, fuck all that. Like, push your comfort zone, try and meet new people. That's why hitchhiking was the epitome of doing that.
You know, it's so interesting because you have this, when you feel good and when you feel confident, it's pretty easy to walk up to someone, at least personally, it's pretty easy to walk up to someone and say hello or ask for directions or whatever it may be. But when you're in a bad place mentally and feeling not great about yourself, it's hard to walk up to someone and say, what's up? And I think it's very much a feeling of how you feel about yourself is how well you can talk to strangers. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah. And we say too, a lot of the reasons you wouldn't do that is because of this fear of judgment, which plays in everything. It's the same reason you wouldn't put out a vlog. It's the same reason you wouldn't release a clip. And our flip on that is, wait a minute, nobody cares about us. You don't care about the people. Well, you might, but like, you don't know anything about that stranger over there. Like, no one's actually judging you. So relish in that obscurity, relish in the obscurity that says, no one knows who I am. I can try and do anything. There's another good quote too. It's like, you wouldn't care how much people thought about you if only you knew how seldom they do. Right. It's like, we're all just on our own path. You need a ride somewhere, but like beyond that, yes, strangers are beautiful, but also just get out of your comfort zone. Like, no one actually cares about you at the end of the day, to paint with a broad brush.
What have your friends said about Smart Nonsense, Henry's vlogs, this podcast that you've created?
What did everyone say? Quote, "You're unstable."
Yeah.
Is that what he said?
Yeah. There's like this hidden feud between us trying to prove ourselves, like the imposter syndrome sort of vibe of like, you know, the feeling, Danny, when you're doing a podcast starting from zero and people like, you're investing so much time and energy. And I spent like $15,000+ of my own money just in the podcast. And they're like, why the fuck would you do that? And I'm like, well, it's an investment, because now you come back, we build this insane team. And now we can connect with literally anyone that we idolize. They want to work with us. They're DMing us. How insane is that? So we're kind of fighting this battle of, in the past, they're like, why are you doing it? And now they're like, why am I not doing it? Because they just didn't have the patience to wait 6 months and test something. Granted, we were lucky that COVID happened and unemployment was very generous. So we could afford these things. Otherwise, that'd never be the case. And like, student loans is a big issue for people. So we get it. But people that are lucky enough not to have those sort of waits, they should be trying these things. And so that's really been the case for us, was just kind of proving ourselves. Now we're at that point. And I don't know.
Well, and that battle ends in two ways, which again, you've probably seen, Danny. It's like the friends who take the traditional path, parents who have taken the traditional path, they either want to see you fail so they can say, yeah, I told you so, obviously, like my way is the right way. Or you don't fail, and it proves, like Dylan said, it proves everything they are and they've done wrong. It says
the dissonance would be fucked.
Yeah, it's like, and I'm going through this battle with my mom right now, or I mean, I gave up on it, but she's a physician, she's a doctor, and I'm like, oh, you can optimize this, and you should have someone come in and automate this, and you can get a scribe to do your charts, because that's the worst part of your job. Yeah, it would cost 30 grand, but that would give you this much time. And I'm doing all these calculations. And to someone like her, who's 30 years into that profession, for instance, like our parents, that dissonance, it's like, you don't want to know. You don't even want to know how the world could help you if you just kind of stepped off the traditional path.
It was a very different world. And this world of trading time for money is one of the past. And it was very easy to figure out, okay, if I work here for X amount of time, for 30, 40 years, okay, I can retire and be happy. But we've been introduced to a world, I believe you guys are 23, I'm 25. And it's like, we know of a world where you can reach infinite amount of people in 1 minute, in 1 second. And this podcast could hypothetically be seen by 7 billion people. And that's a game of leverage and a game of scale that wasn't available to our parents. And that difference is getting played out in society. And it's really interesting to watch, and sometimes sad when you're trying to convince. That's why it's better not to convince and just to execute.
Right. You know, lead by example, I think, in that sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even it's funny talking to Henry's dad the other day. He's like, y'all should update your LinkedIn profiles. Like, I haven't touched mine since like junior year of college. Henry probably the same. It's just, it looks terrible. There's nothing on it. It's like YouTube creator of Bold Introvert. Like, that was the last thing I had on there. And we're like, I saw at this point. So
people use it.
Right. Hey, well, Henry this morning deleted his. I'm about to. We're like, this literally it's not useful to us, because we talked to Sachs, for example, and he's like, hey, we want you to do the launch video to start. And we we pitched him an insane amount of money for this thing. And he was like, yeah, we'll do it. But he never asked. He's just like, that sounds fine. And he's not like, oh, well, can you show me the portfolio of all your other launch videos, which we have none. we've never done a launch video before, but
Thank God.
they just, like literally would have been fucked. But we'll figure it out. But
You
like,
would have created one.
Right. Yeah.
Exactly. We'd go out and we'd create 3 of them and come back to Saks 2 days later and be like, here's your portfolio of launch videos. This is what we can do.
Right. So that's the thing. Like resumes are just such a joke. Even last night I was talking to this person and they're like, oh, I just hired someone to help with my resume. And now it's like, they turn like going to the bathroom into the most elegant sentence. And I'm like, that's the fucking joke. Like why would you even look at that? Like we've hired 20 plus people, been through thousands of resumes. I literally haven't I just look if it's like, oh, does it look pretty? I'm like, I don't read any of it. It doesn't matter. I'm just like, show me your portfolio. If you do dope edits that wow us, that's our metric for hiring, is like, if you don't audibly say wow, we just ignore you. Like you haven't wowed us. You're clearly not better than our current skills. So we'd just be reducing the quality of our team if we hired you.
And you said the other day too, you were going to apply for something like through Lex Friedman.
Oh, dude.
And Dylan turns to me, he's like, listen, you don't want to find yourself in a Google form.
Yes.
If you're applying in a Google form or any form, you're losing. We're not going to win that battle. Like I was like, because Lex Friedman has a dope podcast, or like he wants an editor. We're like, oh, we can probably edit. So I sent over some little thing, but I'm like, this isn't how you stand out. You're never going to stand out this way. If I'm competing with someone over like the text in this document, it's a joke. So I think everyone, we're kind of lucky and we stumbled across some of the best video editors in the world. So now sort of Naval, like they're the 4 kind of luck. We're kind of in the 4th where like people seek us out for our skills. I don't remember all the luck, but whatever. We're like the best in the world at video clips on Twitter. Like that's kind of our niche right now. Or at least we like to think so. So we got lucky there, but if you can find some way to be the best in the world at something, and it can be as super specific as video clips, 1 to 2 minutes on Twitter, then you're going to be known for that. That's where your idols are. Just find where they're living and just be the best at something that they need online.
And then show them, just do it. Show them you can do it. Get
right.
out of the resume.
We never once asked anyone. The only person we asked if we could edit, for example, All In, was Sam. We're like, hey, Sam, we have a ton of editors. We can put them for free on this other thing and it wouldn't harm you. Is it cool if we edit like a JSON clip or something? He's like, yeah, sure, that's fine. But we never talked to All In. That was their first exposure to us. Henry had like, I don't know, a couple hundred followers on Twitter, and he's gotten over 100,000 views on his clips that he made for them just because they retweeted him.
Yeah,
it's insane.
And what happened? Then you guys go to New York and fly to New York to meet them?
No, so we
totally unrelated, right?
Yeah, so New York, we're still okay. Oh my God, dude. We haven't done a podcast on this yet, but Danny, it was like an absolute roller coaster. One, kind of the joke about Henry, like he's like, I haven't been paid yet. Part of the reason why is like, one, the margins are pretty good. That's why we can work on all these free projects before we get hired. So that's nice. But it means like at the end of the day, we're just reinvesting everything. So we're actually like, in theory, we'd be making a lot of money, but we're just trying to like work with everyone possible, optimize for people, not profit, which we could be profitable if we wanted. We'd just be complacent. So basically my first million, we're kind of going wild. And they were like, hey, basically Sam was like, HubSpot has all these new podcasts. They're coming in. They want you to edit all of theirs too. And we're kind of ramping up for that, but they're slow. They're a big corporation. So we didn't they're not ready for that yet. So we scaled this massive team and now we're like, oh, our margins are fucked because we kind of like prepared for this. So we were like screwed. We're like, shit, do we lay off the team or like half the team, which we would never do. That's like our number one priority. Like we would literally be on food stamps before that happens. Or do we just take everything we have and somehow in the next week find a new client that we're excited to work with? And we're just like, all right, we got a week. Here's the deadline. If we don't do it in a week, we're going to run out of money. That's literally it. So that week, that was All In week. We fucking just went at them at the end of the week. That's when David Sachs was like, hey, I want you to do videos for us. So that was dope. And then also, I'll just say it, Hassan Minhaj, he's like a Daily Show correspondent, does his, has like stand up. He hits us up and we're like, oh, we're in New York. He's like, oh, I'm flying back from LA. Let's meet up, talk about this. And so within a week, we're like, okay, Like, why are we stressing out? We can literally find money if you have that pressure. And one, we've had a million DMs of like people offering a lot of money. We just don't want to work with them. So, like, yeah, I think when, what is it? Like, we kind of like living above your means in a sense, if that makes sense, like kind of put that pressure on you. Because otherwise we never would have like immediately jumped on all in. And the moment's right, like right now, because whatever, the longer you wait, the less of a chance. So you need to have that fire underneath. And we were lucky enough. I don't know if it's lucky, but financially it made sense for us to jump into it right away.
Yeah.
You mentioned that you have a bunch of DMs, people you don't want to work with. And I'm curious, what types of factors do you look for in people to work with?
It's basically like, do we, like we said earlier, right? Would we edit this thing for free if they didn't ask or whatever? And what that comes down to is basically just optimizing for the clients or the podcasts that we listen to. It's Tim Ferriss, Naval, All In, My First Million. I think we've got on the board over there our North Star, what does it say? North Star clients. And it's really just those 3 or 4 people. Hassan Minhaj totally came out of nowhere, but we're like, that's an absolute yes.
Right. Because there's this, I think it was Tim Ferriss and Nick Kokonis, they were on a podcast and they were talking about speaking engagements. And they're like, we either do it at full price or for free. And so when we were talking about Hassan, when we were thinking about working with him, like, all right, what are we going to charge him? We're still going to charge him full price. But if he's like, hey, will you just do like a test or whatever for free? Yeah, we'd 100% do it. So kind of taking a lot. One, fucking Tim Ferriss is my mentor.
I think it comes from Tim Ferriss, the full body yes, right?
Yeah.
You need a yes in the head, you need a yes in the heart, and a yes in the gut. Right there. And so much of the 6 months before My First Million, especially with me and like my other startup, there's like a lot of gut stuff going on. Like the head wasn't there. It's like, if any of those things, the head, the heart, or the gut isn't a full-blown yes, it's an absolute no right away, immediately. And we've learned that now many times the hard way.
Wow. So take us through a situation, if you can, without naming names, of going through that situation and not having a full connection between the head, the heart, and the gut.
It's probably that one trial we did, right? So we were under pressure, running out of money, racking up the credit card debt. And we're like, we were supposed to scale this thing for HubSpot. Where are they? And so we're like, fine, we'll dive into the DMs. We'll just take someone who's willing to pay the money. And we go on, we do a trial period with them. They're great, by the way. It actually, I'll get to that, but like it helped inform our team and our creation a lot. Like it helped us innovate a lot, which is cool. But the trial that should have been like 2 or 3 days, maybe a week, went on for like 2.5 weeks. And the whole time we just kept going back and forth. Like, do we care about this? From the head, does the money make sense? If we're taking these talented editors from this project and putting them on this, like, does that make sense? And then I guess the heart is like, we didn't care at all about the content. So that was actually a full body no.
What kind of sucks though now is I stopped listening to My First Million because like same thing with that dating company I work for. Like now I can't watch their content. Like once you're working for it, now it sucks. Like I used to love this and it kind of kills it. But what's interesting to me is I was talking to my family. I went back to Rhode Island for a bit and they're hearing about all these crazy stories. Like, all right, you have the opportunity. Their whole mentality, they're just like money focused. They're like, take every client you can, do all of this all the time. Cause like, who knows, they come from like, my mom was on food stamps for a while. She had my brother at 18 and like raised him as a single mother. Like they're on like, they've never seen this type of money before. So they're like, just take all of it that you can.
Scarcity mindset too, right? Don't lose it. Don't lose a client.
But if we took on this client that we worked on the trial period for 2.5 weeks, then we would have been at capacity, at least for that time, with our editors. We wouldn't have had room to go for all in because now we had 5 editors that we could just send full force at them. So when you're turning people away, now it gives you the time to strike right when the opportunity arises, especially if you like need the money, kind of forced to. So it's honestly, I haven't seen a downside to turning people away yet, other than Henry not getting paid. But like, yeah, we're fine. We just joke about it.
Henry, speaking of getting paid, what similarities exist between astrophysics and wedding photography?
Holy cow. None.
Henry keeps talking about how much of a waste college was.
Yeah.
It wasn't actually. I don't think it was. But
No, I saw the other day, maybe it was you on Twitter, but I think if you know what you want to do, and maybe if entrepreneurship's your thing and you see like there are pockets of money in the world, you just got to go out and grab them and provide for yourself. I think college is a great place to lean into the fact that you are the average of the 5 people around you. So like when I shit all over college and why I went, and I should have taken a gap year that turned into a gap life. I'm like, wait a minute. I met Dylan. I met my girlfriend in the other room. 3 other people we travel with. It's like, I did turn into the average of those 5 people. And I'm really thankful for that. Astrophysics to me was like, if I'm going to be here and not be that stoked about being here, can I at least just do the hardest thing I can think of so that I can convince myself I could do anything?
Wow.
I think maybe it was Madame Curie who did that with chemistry. And I was like, that's a cool idea. So I'll just do something hard. But I did that. And I tell people too, like, you don't study physics in college to get a job. A lot of my peers did, they go into research and education, whatever. But you study physics to learn how to question the way the world works. And I think that's what it taught me, is just ask why like 6 more times than the average person. Don't take anything for granted. Be cynical or critical about the world and why things are the way they are. How that gets to wedding photography, I don't know. Creativity, like these creative arts, music too, photography, videography, it was always my vice to get through those like really hard, stressful school things like physics. And then, it was kind of one of these things that was like, I don't want to go work on Wall Street 9 to 9. I don't want to go do this. I've done my stint at these companies. They treat me like poop. So if I can make 30 grand a year shooting wedding photo, like that'll at least give me the ability to take the year off. So that's what I did.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I just saw that connection. I was like, wow, that you don't see that every day. Someone who does wedding photography and astrophysics. So I had to ask about that. But guys, is there anything else you'd like to mention before we wrap it up? Any topics you'd like to explore?
Danny, sorry if you repeat this in other podcasts. We don't listen to enough of them, but I'm curious, and we don't have to get into it on the pod if you don't want, but like, I'm curious about your perspective on a lot of these things. Clearly you've been doing this podcast for a while. Like we've been grinding on the pod. We're kind of on similar journeys. We're curious, like what's how's the progression of things in your life? Like, where are you trying to go and how are you getting there?
So currently I have a part-time job as a photo booth for weddings. That's been paying the bills, living at my parents' house. I'm grinding on this podcast. I've never enjoyed something or loved doing something for so long as I have this podcast. It is a joy to connect with people all over the world who are fascinating the hell out of me in so many different facets. And it's just a real love of mine. And I'm going to be doing this for a long, long time. So that's how I think about it. The growth has been slow, but it's not like I'm trying to grow fast. I'm trying to just sustain and keep going. And it's easy for me to do.
So are you waiting is the goal that the podcast blows up one day and this is your job, or are you waiting for another idea that you can do on your free time and also do the pod? This
is the end. What I need help with is 2 young kids to help me create some clips for these episodes and just blow it up. That's what I really need, because I love this part of it, but I don't like the editing so much. I'm not as good at creating video clips and stuff like that. So figuring out how I can better market it is definitely a priority.
Yeah. One, we can send you some editors because we're constantly hiring. So there's people that we can just be like, hey, we don't have room for you, but like, if you want to work with Danny, he's dope. You're dope. Match up. But one thing you talked about, like, how do you pick clients you work with? Some of the clients, they have big budgets, but they don't have a massive following already. And like, we can't say definitively that we're going to help grow. Like we'd like to think so, but we're taking like an existing massive audience and demand and just adding clips. So we have no idea, especially like the cost benefit. It makes a lot more sense for someone that has 1 million podcast listens a month than a smaller channel. So that's where like, I don't know. I don't know the way to grow on podcasts. Clearly our
We
podcast
don't.
has like nothing.
I mean, look at all of our channels. They're tiny. But again, it's that point where like we got the right person's attention. So
Yeah.
we're okay with that. But you probably have different goals.
Yeah. I want to crack that code. I want you to have like co-host segments or like somehow find a way to get someone that isn't doing a podcast. You're like, hey, I'm the hot ones, whatever the fucking Sean Evans of podcasting. People love me because I'm just fun to talk to. You have great ideas. Let's collab. And like you kind of rebrand the podcast with them. I don't know. I just love like spitballing ideas. I think going off of someone that isn't doing it already with a massive following would be interesting.
You're saying from my perspective, like attach myself to someone. Like,
Maybe.
what do you think?
I don't know how
Be
to
the
grow up.
parasite.
Be
the parasite.
That's literally, we've just been a parasite on all of this shit. Like we're just like, hey, Sax posts a video and it says like from Henry Belcaster. So we're like kind of
Parasite. But all of this too, Danny, came out of exactly what you're doing. We were like, we love the creative stuff. We love sitting down at the whiteboard and going through the story brand and scripting this thing. We love shooting videos. We love shooting pods. What we don't love is all the back end. Like we'll do it. We've done it. We know how to do it. But it's like, how can we create systems to make the creation that much more fun? So now I can shoot a vlog for 20 minutes and I don't have to sit down and edit it for 8 hours and it comes out the next day. And people think that's really hard to get to that point. And that's where I was lucky to know Dylan for like, at the time, my editor was, I don't know, $100 a week. You can get to that point where the thing's more or less automated.
How's growth been for you, Danny?
There was a big spike when Gary Vaynerchuk came on, but then it's been like, I don't know, pretty linear since then.
And then we
come a little on down.
It goes right downhill. What the fuck were these clowns talking about?
Well, the other thing too that we talk a lot about is creating the binge bank. You know, we're like, nobody's watching us right now. Nobody cares right now. We're going to relish in the obscurity. But we did this thing once. It's on the internet. It'll be there forever. And finally, when the stars align and people are interested, or you have the viral moment or the Gary V, whatever, or you have maybe 5 Gary V's it takes to crack the code, then you've got all this media that's just waiting for people to listen to. And that's exciting.
Yeah. I had Logic's manager on, and he said Logic's secret was that he just put out so much content, so much so that when he finally blew up, his new fans would look at it and be like, oh, wow, there's so much here, and binge it nonstop. And that's the secret. A library of content is better than one viral moment. I had one viral moment when Gary Vaynerchuk came on my podcast. I think it was like 5 million impressions in like 24 hours, something crazy like that. And then it didn't do anything. It gave me a bump, but it's like, what do you need for long term? You need a long library of content.
What's your process for getting a Gary V? Or I was just watching who's the futurist
Biology?
Wired magazine. What's the beard when you don't have the mustache? I forget. What the fuck is his name?
Kevin Kelly?
Kevin Kelly. Yeah. And Kevin Kelly, I was watching that. But what's your pitch and how has that evolved for getting cool guests?
My pitch has evolved by now saying, hey, Gary Vaynerchuk's now been on my podcast and the top 1.5% podcast in the world.
So how do you get Gary V? Or how do you get that?
I tweet to him and say, hey, Gary V, you want to come on the podcast? That's all I do. Like, and the thing is,
Steve Harvey.
Yeah, Steve Harvey too. And the thing is, I'm just trying to be persistent, and I have no qualms about getting rejected or looking like an idiot. That is completely cool with me. Like you, like we're on the same page. It's like, that's part of it.
Relish in the obscurity. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Because the only thing we know is video clips. I feel like if you had all you really would have to do is create one insane Gary V edit and then send that to everybody. Like, hey, we had Gary V on the podcast, and guess what? If you come on, we'll do a dope clip for you, and you can send that wherever you want, or just see yourself and look cool.
People love themselves. They love themselves. That's why the all-in thing works.
That's why Danny's dope. He just lets us talk at it.
Listen to us, right? All we do is talk about ourselves. Finally, in the 11th hour, we learned something about Danny. I think we should bring it to Smart Nonsense and do like a full-blown Danny Miranda interview.
Well, catch the part 2 in Smart Nonsense Guys, this has been great fun. Where can people find more from you guys?
One call to action, right? That's our thing.
All right, you take it. You've been taking all the
No,
Henry Belcaster.
You guys are so
Twitter.
cute.
at Dylan Jardon on Twitter.
Just follow him.
We're both on Twitter. You should hang out with us there. And then I make YouTube videos almost every day when I have the energy. It's also my name.
Nah, that's sweet.
And all those will be linked up. I'm a big fan of these two, and hopefully anyone listening will be as well. Thank you guys for taking the time. I really appreciate you.
Danny.
Danny.
Thanks.
Thanks, bro.